Hi, everybody. It is a little bit after 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the Big and Furry Bovine. Joining me briefly will be Derek Frisbee, who's got other things to attend to. Brian's in the chat, myself, and we have round one and rounds 2 and 3 today that we can talk about. And let's get right into the meat of the program because Derek is on limited time. So we'll let him express his feelings first. Derek, first of all, you couldn't have dreamed for a better circumstance because you and Brian were basically calling out for this on the last program.
Yeah, I was telling Brian, I just kind of had a feeling since the first time I kind of saw a little bit more of him that he would be the selection. I mean, corner was the spot that I thought we were going to go. Now, on Cleveland Browns Daily today, they confirmed the Browns were trying to trade up if they had to get him. So clearly they had him identified as the guy they wanted. At 26, I was shocked to see the names there, and I'm very shocked to see the names still available. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But as far as the pick itself, Greg Newsome, I love it. I know there's a lot of fans who were a little bit upset, but I think when you look at the big picture and why they picked him, he's a young guy who's very fast, very fluid hips and feet, very similar to Denzel Ward in that way. He's a guy that just sticks to you on routes. He's great in coverage. And he's very versatile, and he said that himself. I think that's the reason they picked him. You can plug him inside if you want him to play nickel. You can plug him outside if you want him to play outside, and he can fluctuate great between man and zone coverage. So, I think when you're looking at this pick, we talk about they're going to play either three corners or three safeties all the time. I think if you play the two corners, it's going to be him and Ward on the outsides. If you're playing three corners, it's going to be, in my opinion, him and Ward on the outside with Troy Hill on the middle. But the best part is you can switch all these guys around. So the Browns are in a really good spot right now. I love the pick.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. There is one thing that all of our cornerbacks have in common, and this is not to be critical, it's to be factual, including Newsome, is that they miss games every year, at least 3 a year with Northwestern. And Greedy Williams hasn't been able to stay on the field very much. And Denzel Ward has missed several games over his first 2 seasons. So what this does is it adds not just depth, but quality depth. And if we learned anything at all from last year with the offensive line, the injuries, is that next man up isn't just a saying, and the more you have the ability to run your defensive schemes with multiple players, the better off you're going to be. Does this say anything about Greedy Williams? It might. The fact that the Browns were as focused on Newsome as they say they are, and that they were going to move up to get him, does that mean that there is less confidence in Greedy Williams being a factor? Time will tell. But right now, I'm thrilled with the notion that we have that extra coverage guy, because as the Ravens very shortly showed us afterwards, they're going to try to improve their downfield passing game.
I think what you were saying about Greedy here, to jump in real quick, I think I completely agree. They asked Andrew Berry, I think it was Mary Kay asked Andrew Berry if this was an indictment on Greedy. He said no, but it's exactly what we talked about. And it's one thing I said, they need to go into the draft as if he will not be there. So now, best case scenario, Greedy comes back and he's healthy and he's what I thought he was going to be. And then great, you have more depth. Perfect, whatever. But if he doesn't, now you have the options. So I think that's the best thing. As far as Bateman to the Ravens, I wouldn't say it's an argument, but Ravens fan was talking about how great it was. And I said, well, yeah, but I hope you can get it to him. Rashard Bateman is an incredible talent, but I really hope for his sake, they don't waste him.
Well, and it's like the Jamar Chase pick down in Cincinnati.
The same thing. Can't throw the ball to him if he's on his back. I mean, and a lot of Cincinnati fans were upset that they didn't get that absolute lock offensive tackle that most of the Cincinnati fans felt that they needed based on last year's abysmal protection schemes. With this all said, you said that some fans, Derek, were not real happy. What is it they wanted exactly?
Oh, they wanted the linebacker from Notre Dame. They wanted this guy or that guy or whatever guy, and it's like, well, you've got Williams, who's one hit away from being called lefty the rest of his fucking life. And you've got Denzel Ward, who's always banged up. He injured himself on that interception, that fantastic interception he made in Cincinnati against the tight end. So you've got to have a guy that can, if nothing else, replace Ward.
Yeah. Okay. But what was, Derek, what did the fans, the Browns fans who were complaining about the Newsome pick, what is it they wanted?
Well, Owusu-Koramoah was the guy that everybody had listed because you have all these idiot draft analysts who immediately write down linebacker at 26, but they don't actually know anything about the Browns front office. They would not go linebacker that early. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't trade up tonight and take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. That could be a legitimate option. I'm not writing that out. I'd be thrilled with that. But if they identified Newsome well ahead of time and they were willing to trade up, they're not. If they were going to trade up to get him, they're not going to take a linebacker just because he falls. And that's the reality. So, I mean, fans can be upset all they want, but this is the smart move to make. And the best part is, and like me and Brian were talking before, there are plenty of options and different directions they can go tonight.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess the way I look at this whole thing is, a linebacker in the scheme of a team that is a 4-2-5 and the fact that we haven't been able to get a good linebacker in God knows how long, and the fact that a great linebacker wasn't available on the board, and the fact that nobody else thought he was good enough so that he would go in the first round. So,
well, and somebody brought up that was in the CBD chat, brought up Brian Urlacher, and what they failed to realize is Brian Urlacher was a converted strong safety. He bulked up to play middle linebacker.
Right. And, again, fans are going to have certain things that they want. And some fans wanted a wide receiver. And believe me, the fact that Elijah Moore is still on the board, what's interesting about the whole thing is the Browns can go so many directions in the second and third round that it leaves open, little receivers like Elijah Moore. I mean, I think that's why we have JoJo Natson. To be very honest with you, the scheme that we run doesn't really lend itself that much to that kind of an open field, diminutive kind of guy. And there's two of them, prolific ones, that are on the board. If you're interested in the Eric Metcalf type, some are more polished than others as far as as far as route running. Some are just I'm trying to what I'm doing is looking at my stories here because we have there's so many stories, my God.
I'm telling you, Dyami Brown, he's a guy who I can see starting to slip. I'm telling you, I'm seeing the trends already with these guys, dropping later than a lot of people thought. Terrence Marshall Jr. is still on the board. Yep. That is insane.
Well, I mean, you say it's insane, but, that was only because Lamar Chase wasn't suiting up for LSU. And yes, I'm sure they're deep at the wide receiver position, but he didn't get that much on-field time. But you have Rondale Moore from Purdue, who is a diminutive guy, and everybody's talking about Elijah Moore. Well, Rondale Moore has potential to grow into being
He's like a Steve Smith.
a more polished receiver. Exactly. But he's another open field terror. And there are going to be teams that want this, and I'm not exactly sure how that fits into Kevin Stefanski's, feelings about things.
Well, that's why I thought they would go after. They were going to look for somebody who's a little more the size of Derek Willis, the 6'3", 6'4" guy who can sprint downfield like a gazelle.
Right. I mean, some of the things that surprised me is that Merrick is still on the board.
I think he's going to be the first pick to Jacksonville. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, again, we talked about that it was a very slow year for safeties in this draft. And so that has to kind of sit and wait. The Terrace Marshall Jr. thing is your 6'3", 200-pound guy, but we're in a position now where we're looking to replace, in essence, OBJ. For one, predicated on whether he holds up emotionally and physically, and then we're also worried about Jarvis Landry's health because he's 28, 29, but he's an old 28, 29, racked up mileage on his body. So the Browns, I think, are going to wait on a wide receiver. I don't think that they're going to. I think next year is when they're going to make their move with a wide receiver, not this year. In the draft, I mean, that's how I size it up.
I personally think that would be a mistake only because I think this year's class is so deep with the extra picks you have. Well, even at 59, I saw I've saw a few of mock drafts, and they are mock drafts, so don't take them by heart, but had 59 Rondale Moore dropping clear. So, I mean, it's like I was telling Brian, you got all these picks. I think with the guys dropping, just do it. Pull the trigger. If you really want to make a Super Bowl run, now's the time. You have a few years. Baker's going to have to get paid.
Well, I mean, it would make sense that they would do something for the offense. I mean,
and you saw Dallas make a deal with the Eagles. That never would have happened in any previous year draft. He never traded with Washington. He never traded with the Eagles.
Well, I mean, this draft in and of itself was peculiar. I mean, every draft has its own quirks, all right? Mm-hmm. And, it starts out fairly normal enough. And the thing kind of goes off the tracks when Atlanta picks Kyle Pitts. And right off the bat, you're saying to yourself, so who's going to throw to him? Because Matt Ryan is definitely at 36, years of age, not necessarily a go-to quarterback. Then you have Cincinnati, who must feel compelled by ownership to get a big-name receiver. They keep doing it over and over again, but they don't have an offensive line. So,
hey, Moo, I'm going to have to go ahead and jump off. Last thoughts. I'm going to predict with one of our picks tonight, we draft a receiver, D-line. Well, actually, no. My prediction is 2 D linemen, 1 at D tackle and 1 at edge, and a receiver. I'm going to say that.
Are you going to guess which receiver?
I have too many hopes. I'm not going to get my hopes up on one of them. I'll just say.
He hopes it's a Moore.
I want a Moore or Brown.
Just tell us who you're hoping for.
I want the Moorish.
I would love Marshall, but I don't think it's happened. I don't know. I just one of them. That's all I want. One of them that's good. So, all right, I'll have to leave. I'll talk to you guys later.
Take care, man. So, the Bengals have followed suit with what they do at the time and left offensive tackle on the board. The Dolphins, in selecting Waddle as a wide receiver, a big play guy, for a quarterback who they wouldn't let play in big games last year, and they got to do something to strengthen who Tua is throwing the ball to.
But he's got experience playing with Waddle
Yes, and
and playing in big games with Waddle. So I think that's actually it's like having ATN and Lawrence together in Jacksonville. It's just going to make that system work way smoother.
I'll tell you something about Jalen Waddle, and it's had as much as it's been a pain in my back, literally, to sit here and read about these people. I mean, it's not like Waddle was the top gun at any time in Alabama. I mean, Jerry Jeudy in 2018 was their top receiver. And then, of course, Devontae Smith in 19 and 20. People want to say, well, he's like Tyreek Hill. But the fact is, according to most people who've seen him play and who scout players, he's not nearly as far along as a route runner. And he's not strong against press coverage. If he wants to become the Miami Dolphins' go-to number one guy, quite honestly, he's got a way to go. And when you put something like that up at number 6, boy, that would not help the Dolphins out one iota if they have a guy who's an inadequate route runner. The Lions picking Sewell made sense. They need offensive linemen to protect the quarterback that they think is going to be good, and we know that the Lions wouldn't know a good quarterback if you walk them through the Hall of Fame. However, Jared Goff needs protection, so that made sense to me. The Panthers going after J.C. Horn is all the more questionable because here we go again. You're bringing in Sam Darnold, but what help are you giving him? And they're really sold on him. They've put it in his 5th year contract, and they're acting like this is their guy. And the Panthers had an open shot at Justin Fields and walked right by it. So Sam Darnold is going to be potentially a quarterback whose name is locked in as an infamous person that the Jets took him and walked away from better players that were on the board. And is it going to happen again if Justin Fields really blooms in Chicago? Is it going to happen again that this time the Panthers just kind of walked on the more shall we say, athletic and flexible quarterback as opposed to a guy who's already failed, on the NFL level. Surtain, everybody knows that was going to be what was going to be. And Devontae Smith, everyone knew that somebody was going to go up and get him. The Bears getting Justin Fields, it's been a rough, rocky road. The question about Justin Fields in Chicago is really very simple. They have to play a scheme that makes sense for the quarterback. And I think they made Mitchell Trubisky look terrible. And I'm not saying that Trubisky was any great shakes, but he came up into the NFL as a guy who could move, that he could run, and they forced him into being a pocket passer and didn't let him use his legs very much. And that's not who he was. And Justin Fields is not a pocket passer. So they're going to have to make some shifts in their offense.
But he's far superior in the pocket than Mitchell Trubisky or even Nick Foles.
You've got to be open-minded to the athlete that you have. And I'll give you a really good example because a year ago, before the Browns 2020 season, people were saying that Baker Mayfield had to go. And the truth about Baker Mayfield is a very simple truth. And now history narrows it down. The longer the ball's at his hands, the worse things that happen. Okay? That's a fact, Jack. And if you put him in a situation where he is stuck in the pocket, he's not a real tall guy, and he tends to get happy feet, and he doesn't have as good an opportunity to read the field. Plus, he was playing in an offensive scheme that had no scheme at all with Freddie Kitchens. He was forced time and time again to go to secondary and tertiary receivers who weren't even running the right patterns or weren't running the patterns out because they weren't the primary receiver. And, the whole thing fell apart and he looked terrible. You put in a new system and scheme and take a look at the second half of the year. All you have to do is watch the Browns' first half of the season and watch the second half of the season. And you can see where Stefanski put Baker Mayfield into a position where he had a chance to succeed. All of those play action rollouts to the left, throwing across his body. He's a very accurate thrower when he's on the move. It doesn't mean that he can never be in the pocket. They improved the offensive line in front of him, which was huge. They improved their ability to consistently run the ball. That's huge. But they weren't going to force him to continue to be a pocket passer when they could mix a lot of other wrinkles into this. And believe me, if you can do
well, and they also changed the offensive philosophy. He wasn't going to drop back and bomb the ball around the field 40 goddamn times a game.
But, if you can do that with Baker Mayfield, you can definitely do that with Justin Fields, who has far more athletic ability than Baker Mayfield. So
yes.
The Bears just simply have to adapt to the draft pick and not put the same scheme out on the field that Mitchell Trubisky bombed in.
Well, I think it's going to look a lot more Kansas City-like than what they've been able to do the last couple of years. So,
well, that would be a big switch. We'll see if that's possible based on personnel. When the Cowboys picked up Micah Parsons, nobody's rapping Micah Parsons. But again, when you see something like this happening in Dallas, and you get a linebacker and you've got Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, it looks like Vander Esch is going to be the odd man out. They're not going to probably pick up a fifth-year option on Vander Esch. So they kind of picked a position that they already had. And, but as soon as J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain were gone, they gave up on the corner and they just settled for the best possible player. And these are bad things to do with teams that are.
Well, and again, he did something way out of character by trading within the division. So
right. Then you have, the Chargers. Drafting an offensive tackle. They got to protect Herbert. We knew that they had to do something. He didn't.
And they have to get better at the run game too. So.
Yeah, he did. He opted out of 2020, so we didn't see anything out of that Northwestern player in 2020. I think it's a reach at 13 for this guy, but the Jets getting a guard makes all the sense in the world with Zach Wilson coming in. You can question, all of these quarterbacks. One of them for sure is going to be a bust. It always goes that way.
That Wilson is going to be running for his life, so you might as well get somebody who's capable of doing that.
These are all things that open up the draft, and it's why it's impossible for us to say who the Browns are going to take in the second and third round, because the way these things fall, it's amazing what can fall into your lap. So with the way things went for Mac Jones, and that was in and of itself kind of it was getting to be green room sweat attack. But New England had their eyes on him all along. But I can tell you this. The first thing Bill Belichick said, of course, is welcome to New England. Cam Newton's the starter. Mac Jones is going to have to sit and learn. But slow-footed, non-athletic quarterbacks, and you can think of Tom Brady when you're thinking of the Patriots, the odds of the New England Patriots striking it rich twice in a row that way are infinitesimal. And Mac Jones I've watched a lot of film on him, and he's just not evasive in the pocket at all. I mean, Brady is shifty. He only runs a 5.2 40, Tom Brady, right? This guy's a little faster than that, but he's not shifty. And that it was the problem with Sam Darnold as well. Sam Darnold's faster than both of them. But if you can't get out of the pocket, it's the slide step to kind of slide away from the impending pressure and finding somebody. You can have the greatest eyes in the world, which is what they're saying. Mac Jones, he has a great instinct and a great this and a great that. But if you're playing at a speed that's too slow for the NFL, you're going to get buried no matter where you are. Funny, all we talked about was Zaven Collins. He went to your Cardinals, Brian,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are asking why. They're saying that this is not a pick to win now, and a lot of fans in Arizona want to win now. So, he's a good player.
Yeah, but they did need to replace some people. So in some ways it does make sense, and it does allow them. You're never going to know who's going to be the strong safety or kind of the roving back, and which one's going to be the actual linebacker. So it does make some sense, and I can kind of give Steve Keim a little break on that one.
Joe Woods is the defensive coordinator. We're going to find out more about him. I mean, plain and simple. And there ain't going to be no excuses for Joe Woods, because the people we've, and I knew somebody would think that, yeah, I say this before the show. No, it's not a pacemaker, Joe, or a heartbeat monitor. This is a stim unit, because I'm having major back spasms in my lower back, and sitting only makes it all the worse. And, sitting is bad enough ever since the whole idea of Stephen Rose sitting on women's face. The whole sitting thing has really gone to hell for me. But thank you for asking. And if my heart does stop, you'll just see me face plant on the microphone, which might be the most entertaining part of the program.
The cow is down. The cow is down.
Oh, God. Yeah, it wouldn't be a draft. It wouldn't be a draft if there wasn't a head scratcher like Alex Leatherwood. I mean, what? Look, we know that Gruden literally destroyed the Buccaneers after he won a Super Bowl. Once he took over the draft, all of the talent that came from Tony Dungy got old, and what he brought in, well, it put them into a position where they ended up,
5-11 consistently.
Yeah, shoplifting with Jameis Winston. It all came to fruition over the course of time. What they're thinking with Alex Leatherwood, who is at best a second-round pick going at 17, thank you, Jesus, because that, again, opens up slots and players. So Miami then comes back and gets Jalen Phillips. There's really the question there is health. He was forced to medically retire playing at UCLA 2 years ago. He's had numerous concussions. He confesses to 2 of them. He probably doesn't remember the other 4. But the bottom line is this: with every pick comes some negative. He's a great player, a fine player. Every team says they're comfortable with the medical history of the player. Then when something happens, the fans will be the first one to jump down their throats. Jamin Davis, obviously, the linebacker for Kentucky, he only started 1 year at Kentucky, which isn't exactly your Balabusta college program. He's inexperienced. He's not great in the run game. But again, leave it to the Washington football team. And I'm like, thinking to myself, God, could this get any better? We're at 20, and so far my guy, Caleb Farley, who I'm glad the Browns didn't pick, by the way, and I'll tell you why in just a minute, he's still on the board. And I'm also noting that Newsom's still on the board, and I'm going, oh my God, this, something like this could happen. Kadarius Toney at 20 for the Giants. A lot of people wanted the Giants to get the pass rusher Kwity Paye, but honestly, Tony's a big play kind of guy. He's an explosive wide receiver, so the Giants wanted to go for that. And Kwity Paye is far from a guaranteed, win, which the very next pick the Colts took. The question is, if he's so dominant, why did he only have 11 and a half sacks in more than 3 seasons at Michigan? And if you want to say the name of the head coach, you can go right ahead because he's crazy as a Mad Hatter. But there's a lack of consistency in Kwity Paye. Then Farley goes to the Titans. And, I should have known. Anybody who plays defense is immediately going to be on the radar of the Titans. After the show that we did last Monday, where I predicted the Browns would take Caleb Farley, started looking into his medical situation. And because I really thought that was a direction they were going to go. And I knew he was going to drop to some degree. He had a L5 disc herniation and he had a microdiscectomy. And that is the same surgery that Tiger Woods had 5 times now. 5 times now he's had microdiscectomies. And I started reading deeper into what the success rate is. And the success rate is high, 85% or above. However, it doesn't take into account how long. If you remember Michael Porter Jr., the guy who plays in the NBA, and he was, I think, from Missouri, and he was looked at being one of the top pick guys, and he had actually an L3, L4 disc herniation and had the same microdiscectomy procedure and sat out the entire next year. This year, he's averaging 18.7 points for Denver and doing very, very well. All right. 7 to 18% of the people who have that surgery are going to have it a second time. And the younger you are, the greater the likelihood you're going to have it again. Does that mean you're not going to be able to play after the second one? No, but you're going to miss time. And the thing that's interesting is Caleb Farley, for all of his attributes of athleticism, it takes 2 years to come back. He had the surgery on March 23rd. He is not going to be.
Plus, he's got a foot issue where he still doesn't have full sensation of feeling in his big toe, which is you're driving, cutting, everything. Got to have it. Appendage.
Yeah. And, you have a situation here where he's not going to be at his best until 2022. So if the Tennessee Titans think they're drafting him for this year, they're crazy. But he's off the board, and I'm thrilled. Darisaw goes to Tony's Vikings. It's a shame Tony's not here. They had a nice draft. And Darisaw is a very fine offensive tackle, and that's going to help them get a little more help in their pass protection. The Steelers, God bless the Steelers, one-dimensional, peanut nose picking morons. They went with Najee Harris. You can have Najee Harris. There we go again. Trent Richardson II. I've seen a ton of footage on him, and running through college tackles ain't running through pro tackles, okay? He is not elusive. I'll say it again. He is not elusive. Now, with that said, Tennessee's premier running back might not be considered the most elusive guy in the world, and he and Nick Chubb are the two best, I'm talking about Henry, are the two best running backs that I know of off the top of my head. But honestly, the Steelers needed an offensive lineman. The only guy they have left is David DeCastro, and he's 31 years old and an injury away from the scrap heap. And
they're going to be playing all of those backups to fill in, and none of them are as good as the guys they're replacing.
And I'll tell you this too: if you don't have an exceptional defensive line, a one-cut running back, and a guy like Derrick Henry would not be nearly as effective playing for a team who, if he was not able to get up ahead of steam like Nick Chubb, you force him into being an east-west runner, and you have defeated his game. And Najee Harris is a north-south runner, and they don't have an offensive line. So God bless the Steelers for doing what we thought that they would do. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Baby.
Jacksonville just proves that they're just really retarded. I'm sorry. Travis Etienne, I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. The whole organization, that's how you're going to help out Trevor Lawrence.
And this is where I'm going to disagree with you, because I think that it makes total sense, because now you have you have Trevor Lawrence's security blanket in the backfield. And he's going to be like...
He's a grown-ass man now. Come on.
Every quarterback has a security blanket.
Well, you know something?
Jerry Kittle is one of the biggest fucking security blankets out there. Travis Kelce is a security blanket.
While every player quit for the Jaguars, basically, James Robinson ran for over 1,000 yards last year as an undrafted rookie. And now ATN is an addition to Carlos Hyde, who they've paid in free agency. So what is going on in Jacksonville? Nobody's minding the store. This doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Travis Etienne, put in the right situation. I mean,
well, but they're trying to do what the Saints did, what Peyton did with Kamara and the one that ended up going to the Ravens. Shipley would know his name.
Well, I'll get to him.
But anyway, so they're wanting to have a third down or passing down guy, as well as their thumper.
Yeah, well, I mean, 25. When you were 1-25, you come, in the picks in the first round, you come away with Trevor Lawrence. I'm not so sure that Trevor Lawrence is going to be a world beater. But again, ATN is a guy who, if he never gets started, he's a one-cut runner who breaks down.
Mark Ingram, thank you, Joe.
Yeah. So, of course, I love our pick. Makes sense. That's why he was on the board, because some of these other teams did these head-scratching things. And the Ravens are happy, too. They got Rashad Bateman. And Bateman is, thing about that's interesting, Joe, about Bateman. For all the talk about the big target, he's listed at 6'2", but at his pro day, he was only 6 feet tall. You say, well, that's not that big a deal. And in college, there were times when he didn't play big either. And he didn't always battle for the contested catch. You watch the film on him. Baltimore has tried Miles Boykin and Dez Bryant. This guy is not a true big target. And I think for a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and Joe, that I think that Lamar Jackson is an exceedingly talented young man, the idea of him getting away and throwing the ball up to someone is very important. Now they've got Bateman, Marquise Brown, and Sammy Watkins. Well, Sammy Watkins, if he has a walk or couldn't get down the field very quickly. Marquise Brown, there's a question mark next to Marquise Brown. And now you have Bateman in the mix as well. It has been an Achilles heel that they don't have that guy. And the thing is that the quarterback will automatically buy himself time. He's just so elusive that throwing the ball up to a big receiver, it just makes all the sense in the world. I'm not sure Bateman is that guy, but I think he has a lot of ability.
earlier Joe was asking you about how many catches he would he have at least 55 catches for the 2021 season. And it's like, well, you're going to have to measure wide receiver success in that offense in a different way. It's going to end up coming down to average yards per catch and how many touchdowns do they have.
And I like to think that two of the games that they play are against the Browns. We're going to have a better secondary. All right. I mean, right off the bat, you look at your own division first and foremost, and who's getting stronger and in what way. Obviously, Cincinnati wants to be an offensive juggernaut, and they want to be a team that outscores their opponents, like 35 to 30, and that they're going to be better. The Bengals are going to be better this year than they were last year. But the problem there is that their head coach, if Zach Taylor doesn't get it done this year, they're going to start all over again. All right. He's got one more year. He's on a short leash, and everybody knows that because he's dealing, with Mike Brown. And this is what has been a problem for the Bengals all along. But they're not getting better defensively is what I'm saying. And that's all to the advantage of the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. And the Steelers are not getting better either. So this is really kind of melding down into a two-team struggle in which the Ravens were further along than the Browns because the Browns had no secondary, no defense, no way to stop Lamar Jackson, none. And now we have a credible pair of defensive ends.
Here comes.
And I am convinced that we will, in the second and third round today, get another edge rusher. And I know that what Derek wants, but another edge rusher is going to be important, and an interior lineman is going to be important too. And Barmore did not go yet. And that doesn't surprise me because the film on him, I thought, was not good. He looked a little bit slow of foot and not nasty. The Browns like their offensive linemen. It's like you watch Jedrick Wills play, and Jedrick Wills needs to improve, by the way, as a pass protector. But as a run blocker, he's a human snowplow. That guy just mauls people. That's what the Browns like. That's what Kevin Stefanski likes. And on the defensive side, they want nasty people up on that defensive line. We'll see. Barmore doesn't strike me as that guy. The Saints then got a defensive end. The Packers, who are in the midst of a mini drama with Aaron Rodgers, got a cornerback, Eric Stokes, and that was all overshadowed because of the news that Aaron Rodgers wants out of Green Bay. And if that happens, then they're going to wish they'd gotten a quarterback and traded up. The Bills got Rousseau, the defensive end, and, as much as, people pimped him, he did go in the first round, but he is very raw. He wasn't even a pass rusher in high school. He played safety. And, he is not the quick burst guy. And, man, it's tough to succeed as a pass rusher in the NFL without that first step blast. You got to have technique and moves, but you got to get off the line. And then your Ravens, Joe, got a good pick in defensive end, Owa, who is Jason Owa is a guy who was a fine college football player.
Away.
Yeah, his stats, basically the number of sacks. Owa is raw. He's green. And we'll see how he develops with tutelage from your coaching staff. And that's, and then Joe Tryon, who a lot of people say, well, this guy we want in Cleveland. It's like, no, you don't really want him. The Bucks got him. That's good for them because considering they were 32, they got a guy who was destined to be a first-round pick earlier. And Tryon is a guy who, it was he and Christian Barmore. I keep wanting to say Christian Bernard, the heart surgeon. Christian Barmore would have,
Baltimore.
Tryon to them is a project. He's a guy who is spot duty. He's not going to be a 3-down player.
Tryon extra dry.
Yeah, I mean, so who are the guys that we're looking at in this round? Brian, you got to guess a player. And I know that this is hard to do because the Browns sitting at 59. How far can you move? How far can you move from 59?
Well, I think they could jump up maybe 15 slots in the second round if they can find the right dance partner, and if they have someone specifically targeted. They might go edge rusher in the second round. I don't see them picking a linebacker at this point. I think they're going to be happy with the group that they have. But
your edge might be Carlos Basham Jr. He's more of a big play kind of guy, but not down to down necessarily the most effective. But he might be a person that you get because you want to spell your asthma attacked Myles Garrett and give him fewer snaps in a game. Carlos Basham Jr. out of Wake Forest. I mean, he's 6'5", 275. He has great quickness, and he can get after quarterbacks, but he's not very good in the run game. So that would be a pick if you wanted to spell Myles Garrett with somebody who has the ability to athletically get to a quarterback. So I'm saying, and they're projecting that he could still be on the board. The other one is the defensive tackle from Washington, Levi Onwuzurike. He's another guy who, I could see an edge and a defensive tackle, one of these two guys ending up in the Browns' pocket. It's very possible. Then there's the outside thing, which will probably fall into round 3 if it falls. And that's, what do you do it as for a backup quarterback in Cleveland? Are you happy?
Well, they still have, as far as I know, they still have
Exactly.
the guy that they got from Denver.
Nobody wants to even say his name because they don't remember it because we didn't.
Number 5, I can't remember.
Why am I? Case Keenum.
Case Keenum.
But he's underpowered. His arm is underpowered. My goodness. But
the durability of Baker Mayfield's been really good. So, the idea that he's going to come in and have to play half a game or whatever. I mean, they did in Pittsburgh, but they were getting blown out in Pittsburgh. So
3rd, 4th round, the quarterback from Florida, Kyle Trask, is a guy who you might want to keep your eye on. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. He, he has good accuracy. He has a good arm, and he can learn. At some point, you're going to have to. We can't, with Case Keenum, be considered an elite team if something happens to Baker Mayfield, because you can forget the downfield stuff. His arm is just underpowered, really seriously underpowered, and you're going to
but you could say the same thing about Seattle or any of the other top flight teams.
Yeah, I mean, a disaster is a disaster. But I'll tell you one thing: if you have as good a running game as the Cleveland Browns and as good an offensive line as the Cleveland Browns have, and you have a scheme that takes advantage of tight ends, one more year of Case Keenum, is a likelihood. But I'm saying if you have a couple of picks that you can get here and there in the third, fourth round, that might be a way to go. The other way to go is the long shot wide receiver, Elijah Moore, who's 5'9", 184 pounds, is still around on the board. The thing is, he is.
Yeah, Rondale will probably go in the second round.
Yeah, and I look at him as well, but he's going to go too far up in the second round. Elijah Moore might still be around. That's a luxury pick. Elijah Moore is a guy who it's like Tyreek Hill, a guy who, but Tyreek Hill runs better patterns and he's a better, more polished receiver. But if you want a big play possibility on the field, if you have a pick to give and he's still on the board, that might be a way to open up your offense in another way. I'd say very, very doubtful that the Browns are going to go for a 5'9" receiver, whether it's Rondale or Elijah. I mean, those two fellas are, and like I said, with JoJo Natson faking end arounds and returning punts, I think that limited role has already been filled. Route running wide receivers, we don't need, inside receivers, we don't need. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to give you those three names. All right. The defensive tackle from Washington, Onwuzurike. All right. That's one. And the other is Basham Jr., the edge, to spell Myles Garrett. That is my best guess. So,
that's a worse take, Coded, than your usual. Well, if he were barbecue ribs, would you eat him? No, we're not trading for the fucking Antichrist. All of you assholes wanting Aaron Rodgers in fucking Cleveland can go dunk your fucking heads in the Cuyahoga and take a big goddamn slurp. Fuck off.
Why does somebody want to remind me if I remember Georgia's quarterback, Eric Zaire, the prematurely balding quarterback of the Cleveland Browns? Of course I remember him. I try to forget him, though.
Yeah, I thought it would be better, too. He showed a little bit of promise and then went straight into the shitter.
Yeah. So limited, very limited. And I've been reading all this stuff too. You don't want. What do you need a 36-year-old, 37-year-old quarterback for in Cleveland? You don't. And the truth of the matter is
not only that, he's collecting almost the same fucking money that Mahomes is. What 8 players are you going to cut, Coded, so that you can afford Aaron Rodgers to be on your fucking team? You're going to get rid of Myles Garrett? You're going to get rid of Nick Chubb and fucking Kareem Hunt? You're going to get rid of the fucking receivers?
Yeah.
Who are you gonna cut so that you can pander to the big fucking Antichrist crybaby in fucking Green Bay, who has the shittiest taste in women this side of a Kardashian?
Yeah, well, I think he wants attention. No, it's a non-starter conversation. And look, I believe that Baker Mayfield, given the right circumstances, is a competitive, hardworking, driven guy who's learned the scheme. He learns schemes quickly. He adapts. And I think that he is enough to get us to the ultimate game. Whether he's good enough to win that game, I don't know. But I think the Browns are headed in the right direction. He already proved that he could do pretty well and win 2 games, postseason. So now you play the season and you get into you got to get into the fray at the end, and then you see how he does. But this notion of Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you think you can just plug him in anywhere. I think that's foolishness. Of course we don't, because they're not serious. I respond to all my people because, hey, you're taking the time to be here and I appreciate it. And that means the last laugh's on you if you keep coming back here. So a win's a win, Yeah, exactly. And that this is what he's being facetious. SAT word. As far as Aaron Rodgers, I don't think that, it's like, what do they say? Carrying out a fake at the quarterback position. The Jeopardy job is not his. And let's be honest about it. For a football player who'd never been on television before, he did a credible job. But he was boring, lackluster, and did not know how to project his voice. He didn't know how to inflect words. And as a result, it came off very mundane, plain. He didn't punch words, okay? If you're in broadcasting, it comes naturally. If you're not, he's good at yelling out, whether it's, whatever the play calls are at the line of scrimmage and barking off people to jump off sides. I couldn't do that, I can't be an auctioneer. But he can't be a broadcaster yet. He's going to play somewhere. And he's opened the door to try to get out of Green Bay. I think it's all just a bunch of drama so that his agent can keep him in the limelight during the time of the draft. They'll all kiss and make up in the end. He ain't leaving Green Bay, and Green Bay ain't letting him go. So
I will say this, that the Antichrist complaints about the team not fucking doing anything to really do something be something on offense is pretty valid. That's as far as my compliment of Aaron Rodgers and any format whatsoever is going to get. Other than that, fuck that Antichrist piece of shit.
Well, and Joe, every damn year it seemed, maybe not the year that we went to the playoffs. What was it, 2003? Run William Run with
2002. That was the year my dad died.
Oh, okay. So there's some years you can never forget, And
Also the year the Buckeyes beat the Miami Hurricanes for the national title down here in Tempe.
But to put it in perspective, the 26th pick was the lowest pick that the Browns had since 1995.
Yeah, the last time they were 11-5.
Yeah,
and won the first round playoff game.
That's right. So yeah, obviously
with Vinny Testicle Verde.
So everybody's got to run now because it's NFL draft time. I've got it all recording right now, so I'm going to be a little late, but I fast forward through all the nonsense. And it's only 5 minutes between picks this time, so they say, and things will go off the board a little quicker. But it is scheduled 7 to 11:30 tonight. So get your favorite beverage and get out and watch. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. We'll have a whole lot more to talk about on Monday now, won't we? As the full draft will be known and all the cards will be on the table. Thanks for tuning in. And until Monday, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Thanks for coming, Kay.